So now we're going to get into an even more complex photo conversion process, and I like to work with construction equipment. And so I'm going to show you how to convert this photograph. This is more time consuming. It's sometimes could be therapeutic depending on what you're trying to do. But in the end, you end up with a nice SVG that can be used again for a cutout. And you can do this with just about any image. Each image is going to have a little bit different complexities, and a lot's going to depend on the level of detail that you're looking for. So just like in our previous videos, we're going to use Photoshop. So I'm going to go into Photoshop here, and we'll close that, and we'll create a new image. Again, I'm going to use this custom 12 by 12. Now this is one that I made. So again, I just said 12 by 12. So it's 12 inches by 12 inches at 300 pixels per inch. All right. So it gives me nice resolution for good detail. Then, like we did before, I'm just going to left click and drag and drop this into Photoshop, this image. And again, I can scale it. Usually I try to make it take up the entire 12 by 12. And then we'll just click OK. And now we need to start cleaning it up, getting rid of the background. So I'm going to get rid of this background layer. We'll delete that. I don't need that. We're going to make sure also that we rasterize that layer. We may have to come back and, if we didn't do that now, we'd have to probably do it later. But then I usually start with using this magic wand tool. And again, I usually set the tolerance here. Let's go with 50. And when I click on it, I want to look at the edges and see that it's, it's finding all that color and it's not taking out any of the image that I want to keep. So you can see by selecting that, it picks up all that. I can just hit delete and it gets rid of that. All right, so there's kind of some three main tools: the magic wand, the paintbrush or brush tool, and then the eraser. Now there's some other tools that we can get into too, but this will give you an idea of what I'm doing. Now there is one other selection tool up here, which is a lasso tool. So because down here I've got such a mix of colors, my magic wand is going to be difficult to pick up. You can see that it's picking up all kinds of different stuff, and that's not what we want. So I'm going to use the lasso tool, and with the lasso tool, I'm just going to come in here and I'm just left clicking, holding my mouse down, or if you've got a pen stylus on a Surface tablet, this is actually a lot easier. So that's usually what I use. So I'm just kind of tracing all this data coming in here, and then I can delete that. And the same thing over here. I'm just going to come down here, make sure I don't pick up any of my image. So I'm just kind of getting rid of the bigger pieces. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to use my magic wand. We'll get rid of that one, right? So I want to get rid of all the outside unnecessary colors. Oops, not that one. All right, now you can zoom in. I'm going to use my Alt key and my wheel mouse in this case, or if you're again on a Surface tablet or a tablet, you can pinch and zoom. So again, I'm just getting rid of all these areas. Now these are all the areas that I don't want in my image. I can even get rid of some of these so it shows up, and you'll learn what you like. There's really no exact science. You'll learn what you like to keep, what you want to get rid of. Like in here, you can see I can get rid of that. That's sometimes that works. That's going to take up too much of the white. I don't want that. So the magic wand, again, works in some cases. In other cases, it doesn't. All right. Then we're going to just deselect. And I'm going to hit erase, use my eraser key, and get rid of all that. And then I'm going to come down here. And this is where you start coming in and start erasing. So as I come in, I'm going to zoom in. And what I'm going to start doing is just erasing. So you're just erasing the data that you don't want, up to the edge as close as possible. Sometimes you have to adjust your eraser width. So again, this is just where I'm just coming in and cleaning this up. And same thing now. Oop. So if I messed up, I can Control Z undo, and I just have to start over. So I can come in here. So I'm just, again, the stylus is a lot easier than the mouse, but you can do it with a mouse. And you're just erasing. You're erasing anything that you don't want in that image. Okay. And And same thing here, I can kind of get around the tracks, kind of keep the tracks where they are, right? So this would take me a while if I was to sit here and do this the whole video. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move forward to the next step of the phase. So let's get rid of all this. And you really want to get rid of all this before you go to this next phase, because you end up with too many colors in the threshold that it may not work the way you want. Okay. All right. So I'm not going to, you get the idea, right? You're just erasing. So then in here, right, you can see that my eraser is too big. Well, I just come up here and I change the size. Okay. So I can make it smaller and I can get into these tight spots. All right. Now you can also use the lasso tool. Come in here and come in. There's some other tools that make this simpler as well. But as you learn the program, you'll learn little shortcuts, little tricks. So I'm just going to come in here and erase some of this. Okay. So now that I have that, let's go ahead and get rid of that as well. So the next step, again, in the process, again, you want to erase all that, but the next step would be to get it into a threshold. So you go to Image, Adjustment, and Threshold. Now there are some other things that I've played with, like different filters, different enhancements, turning it to grayscale. It all depends on the image. So we always kind of start here first to see what results I get. One of the things you want to make sure when you do the threshold, because you can do the threshold on the whole image or a portion of it. So if I do a lasso around just this section, and sometimes I do this where I'll come in and just do sections at a time. When you go to the threshold, you can see that it's only changing that. Another tip might be to copy this image so you use this as the background, because you can see it wants to change the color. It's going to change it from color to black and white. So sometimes you need the background to determine. But that's why I get rid of all this, because it's trying to use that. It's using those colors in that threshold. Okay. So I'm going to deselect this, and let's do the image adjustments. So now I'm doing the whole thing. So now you can see the whole thing is turned to black and white. And then what you're messing around with is this level. So again, the more you get rid of that, it'll highlight this. That'll stay black, and you'll know where that edge is, right? So you want to get rid of those first. But as I sit here, you can see that I can make it all black, and I can go the other way, right? So it's kind of finding that fine tune of what you want, and how much detail you want. So let's just say I start, let's go with something like that, right? We want to keep a little bit of color in there, and then I click OK. So now it just becomes a black marker and an erase operation. Okay, so here, let's start with this back over here. And, it depends on what you want cut out. So right in here, I want to keep, that shape, but I want to make this black. So if you use the pencil or the brush tool, you can just come in here and start coloring in that area. Now there are some tricks. So if I use the magic wand again, it kind of highlights that. And this way when I highlight it, oops, let me undo that. And I use the pen or the brush, and let's go to make it a bigger brush. Now you can see I'm kind of coloring within the lines, right? So it kind of makes it easy to color in that black section, keeping that part black. Now there are some other tools as well that you might use. So if I deselect that, and just color that in black. And then same thing here, you're just kind of coloring in, these areas in here. So let's say that I want, I can leave that black. This would be cut out, in here. Again, I'm just going to change the size of my marker, my brush, and I'm just going to color that in. All right, so you're really coloring. That's what you're doing. Like down in here, right? I can use the erase tool, and because I want that to be cut out, I want that to be part of the, cut out of the image. I want the black to stay. You can also use the paintbrush or the bucket. So with the bucket, I can click in here, and that kind of darkens up that area. You can see it doesn't look real well. So a lot of this is trial and error. It's trying, I don't like that, undo it, and then figuring out what you want to see, and that's what you're doing. So it's very difficult to kind of capture this in a short a short video, but those are some of the tools. It's kind of really what you're doing. You're using the marker or the brush tool to kind of, color in areas. So like in here, I don't want that. But I do want this line to be cut out, right? That's that detail I want. So what I might do is, zoom in on this. And I usually try to say if my eraser, let's get out of this for a minute. Go to your eraser, same thing with your brush size. Depending on the detail, how small you want it, you have to, all right, well, 20 pixels is what I want to get rid of. And as you can see, that's kind of too big. So let's do 10. All right, so 10 looks pretty good. So I can sit here and, erase that. All right. Now I'm doing it with a mouse. Sometimes you want to steady your hand. So if you kind of go slow, there are some other tools like this line tool. So with the line tool, I'm going to switch this to white. I can do this line, which makes it nice and straight. And over here, you can see it's 1 pixel. Well, if I make that 10, and then we set the color, oops, I'll set that to 10, and we set this color to white, and now you can see I got a nice white straight line. All right, so in this case, I'm using the line tool. Now with the line tool, what it does is it actually makes it another layer. So what you have to do then is merge that layer into the main image. So if I right click on here and I say merge down, now it's that white section. Now I can use my magic wand to come in here and delete that. And now I've got that white, nice straight line. And I might use that line here, I might use that line here. So that's the other technique I use is to get really straight edges, you want to use these, some of these tools here. All right. So again, Photoshop has a lot. I'm trying to keep it simple so that you learn a little bit at a time. I think usually I got started with just using this marker and the eraser tool and erasing it. Again, I found using a Surface or a tablet with a stylus, it gives me that kind of effect that I'm coloring and I'm drawing. Trying to do it with a mouse is a little bit difficult. You can see you don't get real straight edges. Again, the key though is to get rid of all that background first. All right, so anything you don't want, you want to get rid of, then use the threshold. And then you're basically, coloring and erasing what you don't want. So like in this area in here, anything white, I get rid of, I erase. Because I don't, that's going to be what's cut, that's the cutout. That's the part that you're going to weed on your, on your vinyl or your, infusible ink, whatever it is that you're cutting out. So those end up having that background, which is why I keep that checkerboard pattern in the background so that I can see what is actually going to be cut out. So hopefully that helps. In any of this process, you can always ask a question. This is time consuming. It's if you want me to convert it, we do have a way that you can ask for an image to be converted as well. So again, but I like to show others how to do this. They can do it themselves. It's not difficult, just can be time consuming depending on your level of ability and what software you have. And again, I'm using Photoshop. There's other applications out there that can be used. You're just kind of doing the same thing. It's sometimes the threshold is called histogram, depending on the software application you're using. And we'll get into that. I'm building this over time. There's going to be more and more of these little short tips and tricks and videos, and hopefully you share this with your friends and others get to take advantage of these videos as well. So again, contact me. Let me know if you got any questions. Be happy to address those.